Here.
Justin Rodriguez is not here yet. Jack Williams.
Here.
Thank you.
So pledge the flag. Chair, would you like to lead us? Sure.
Raise your right hand over your heart and repeat with me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll open with public comment. Does anybody wish to speak on items that are not on the agenda tonight?
We'll take public comment in person first. You can just state your name and residence.
My name is Elizabeth Breen, and I have two addresses in Solvang, 339 Alisol and 359 Nycobing. And this may be on the agenda, but it's a matter of protocol, and you guys can advise me. The notice that I received at the project for 1420 Mission is postmarked September 28th. Today is 7 days from September 28th. And in speaking with a lot of the residents from the Nyborg area, they were not even aware of this meeting, or they were noticed not within the 10 days that I understand the ordinance calls for 10-day notice. So before you hear that matter, I wanted to find out. And then if you do hear that matter, then I'd like to speak on that matter, but I'll step away and let you guys discuss.
You want to address?
Yes,
that, Laura?
thank you very much. In response to the noticing, she is right that it does require a 10-day notice. We did send it out on the 10 days prior to the meeting. If it's postmarked, then we need to respect the postmark that is less than 10 days. So we need to work on that and see what happened. I don't know.
So does that mean that we should?
There can be a
Continue
delay
this meeting
between
and-
the city sending something out and when the post office actually delivers it, and we don't always control it.
When did the city send it out?
We sent it out. It would be the Tuesday. Yeah, I'd have to double check. Let me just. Date that we mailed.
It was postage stamped on September 20th. I mean, you guys can see the envelope. It was postage stamped on September 25th, but it wasn't postmarked until September 28th.
So it's not in the post-
So it was ran through a meter on the
It
25th.
can often sit in the post office for 3 to 5 days.
We can't control it.
And I'll just say too, the document on page 69 references Monica Little, who is the ARC Architectural Review Commission or Committee person, and she was completely unaware of this meeting. She may not physically live within 300 feet of the project. I don't know the exact which homes fit that, but your document says that there'll be some changes that she would have to be worked with on it, and she had no idea. So I would just ask that you consider continuing this to a date when residents are clearly in the 10-day notification period.
I should mention that I got a call late this afternoon from one of the residents with the same issue.
Well, again, with the postmark being the 25th, it's not uncommon for things to get delivered later. But, it is the 10-day notice was accomplished based on that date.
I'll just add that we closed on the property on September 4th, and this is actually addressed to the previous owner of the property. So I'm not sure how all that works, but I just feel there were some real issues with the notification.
Mr. Chair, what I would suggest is you actually take up the item, and if you all, based upon testimony from the public, believe that you should then continue it, you all can, somebody can make a motion and you can take the action to continue it, but it wouldn't be based upon the technical noticing issue. It would be based upon your determination that the public needs more time and that you all feel that the item should be continued.
So just for clarification, the clock starts running on the 10 days
Right.
on the day it leaves here, not the postmark date?
When we deliver it is when we do public notice, is when we deliver it to the post office.
And was it noticed in newspapers as well?
Yes,
It is.
And that appeared 10 days before.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's,
Can I, just a
Sure.
question, so 10 days starts when we take it to the post office and say, here. And if there's a disruption, then it's on the post office, not on us?
Correct.
But it's really on the public who hasn't gotten the 10-day notice. I have an issue with that. I mean, I feel bad about the project if it gets delayed, but I would entertain continuing it just so that we have the proper notice going out from a postmark. I mean, I'm trying to think about my income tax or my property tax or anything. You walk in and you get it stamped right then and there so that you know the clock starts, so that you know that you're covered. And I understand, I'm not even faulting staff. I know we're going through some stuff with the post office and you got election issues and all kinds of stuff that's coming along. I just would feel terrible if we tried to do something that didn't have proper notice and somebody later challenges it and we go through a hearing, we go through a process and we have folks that are challenging it. I don't know if we then need to come up with a different procedure at the city. And again, it's nothing about staff. This is how we've always done it. But here it comes because we've got post office issues where things get stamped, and they're canceled at the time, just like we all do with our taxes and things, to make people feel good that they've technically been noticed. That's just my thoughts.
yeah, I tend to feel the same way. Let me ask an additional question on the second project that's up tonight. Does that fall in the same category? Was that
This is
noticed
the
at the same time?
Okay, so the first project was, and again, we're still in public
Allison.
comment, so the first item that was, went out on the Tuesday before. We were working on.
May I just, I'm going to ask you all, because we're actually on the item, which is items which are not on the agenda.
Good point.
That
No
you do
comments.
close out
Public.
public comment on items that are not on the agenda.
And then
And
get
then
to
you
the
go to
agenda.
this agenda item and have this discussion.
Good point. Thank you.
Are there any other comments about items not on the agenda before we move on?
Is there anyone else in person that would like to speak on not on the agenda? If not, let's ask everybody on Zoom and phone. If you would like to speak on items not on the agenda, please raise your hand or unmute yourself. Doesn't seem that we have any more public comment.
Seeing none, we'll move on. Requests for continuance, withdrawals, or addition of ex-agenda items. This might be where we,
This would probably be an appropriate place that you could have this discussion. I would urge you, though, before you go much further, that you at least do hear from the applicant or the applicant's representative. And that you hear on this limited question of whether there's going to be a continuance without even opening the hearing, or whether you're going to open the hearing and then potentially have a continuance, or you could just hear the item. So I think those are your three choices.
If I may comment, it just seems like if we open the hearing and we don't address whether it was noticed correctly, there are folks that haven't been noticed who can't comment or haven't maybe perhaps heard all the issues. It would seem like we should take up the issue of, was it publicly noticed correctly? If we have, then move ahead. If not, we should just stop. Because there are folks that maybe are out of town, there are folks that can't hear, there are folks that are on Zoom meetings that didn't know about it, and they would then have to go back and hear the record to try to hear it. My position would be, let's talk about, was it noticed correctly, and then move forward or not move forward.
okay, well, let's talk about that. We did. I'm concerned, I share your concern that if we deliver something to the post office, that we start the clock then, with no guarantee that the post office won't sit on it for a month before they send it out. Just for future reference, we should probably get things stamped at the post office so we have an official record that it went there. I'm also sympathetic to the fact that people didn't get their 10 days notice that's required. I mean, the fact that the post office had it for 3 or 4 days doesn't help the public at all.
No.
So I'm inclined to continue this for maybe the next meeting.
The next meeting would be November 2nd. And we can renotice again for the community just to make sure that there is no confusion or anyone excluded. The one comment in regards to those that might have purchased property in the last month or two, the ownership sometimes will not change for at least 2 or 3 months on transfer of ownership through the assessor records. And so it's reliance on the address rather than the ownership because that's the mailing list we use.
Right. In that case, it was delivered to the right place, just
Correct. I just
The
wanted
name
to
hadn't
answer that one
updated.
comment.
I would agree with that. The assessor's office, and it is a lag time, and folks have the obligation to go in and make address changes. But just dropping it off at the post office with a 10-day quick turnaround seems like we need to do so that we can defend ourselves that, look, it all got postmarked and we got stamped. So I'm sorry, ma'am, sir, you're out of luck. We did what we can do, but perhaps that's just a new policy that we need to look at. Nothing at staff, nothing at post office. It is what it is. And it is a quick 10 days and you get 7 days or 6 days. That's pretty
Sure.
tough. I'd hate to have it challenged later that we didn't do it correctly. So I would agree with Jack that we should postpone it as much as I hate to do that to the applicant and his staff and the people that are here for that. I just think that it ought to be a full, fair hearing with as many people who have had notice. We can send it out again, tomorrow. They'll have 28 days or notice or whatever. And maybe the same folks will be here, maybe not. But that's kind of how it goes. That's my position.
Do you have any comments, Scott?
I agree with you both. To do that would be the most respectful thing, I think. So I apologize to the
Anybody
applicant.
wanna make a motion to that effect?
I'll move to postpone this item for the 1420 Mission Drive Development Plan, I believe, for the following meeting, assuming that is what the applicant would also agree to do, that they don't want to kick it further down, but, and again, apologizing to them. But that would be my motion, and we could certainly have a second and hear from the applicant if they were here.
And this is just on item 2B, right?
To be correct. I second that motion.
Okay, it's been motions made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass 3-0, 2 absent.
November the 2nd. We'll see you November the 2nd.
But let me also ask the question, does the same thing apply to item 1?
I know that we
Even
sent
though
out,
nobody has objected.
yeah. And I would have to check. I believe we sent out the notices on item 1 on the Tuesday before, and then we had the follow-up with the noticing on the Friday of that week. So that should be within the 10 days. I just have not heard from anybody, and I haven't gotten any mail returned.
I
So-
haven't gotten anything either. Okay, well, we'll continue then with just item 2A.
2A, yes.
And just for item 2A, I'm conflicted because I own property adjacent to it, so I have to excuse myself. I'm as close as you can be.
But that presents us with a problem because
Right.
we do not have a
We do
quorum.
not have a quorum.
So how does that work?
Well, I hate to invoke the rule of necessity when you're actually immediately adjacent. I think that you in fact probably do have a potential for potentially significant economic impact, which would be the disqualifier.
But does the necessity override that because our other commissioners are not here? Or does it protect me from being sued by somebody that I have a conflict no matter how I vote? Or we don't know that?
Can someone sue? Yes. And yeah, I think in this instance, if you were 300, if you were 300 feet away, then I would say that we would invoke the rule of necessity. My concern for you is you are immediately adjacent.
Correct.
So I think this is one where perhaps we should take a 5-minute recess and try and call our third commissioner and see if he's going to be here.
Because
He told us
he was
earlier
going to
that he
be
was
here
going to
for
be
this
here.
item. Yes.
The other option, and just to let you know, we were contacted by the fire department in regards to a concern for this project. So we were going to go through the full presentation and get you up to speed on this project and the issues, and then ask for a continuance anyways. So because some items came up with the fire department. So if the item is going to be continued, we were already planning on this going to the November 2nd hearing. And so it may be prudent to just go ahead and continue it cleanly and have other members of the planning commission here for the November 2nd meeting.
I would say under the rule of necessity, you could participate simply for the purpose of agreeing to a continuance.
I will agree to a continuance if that's what the other members would like. And again, with apologies to any applicant.
Absolutely.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0.
Just a couple items before I adjourn. On ex parte communications, I did have a meeting with Eric Vasquez at the site. He went over a description of what was going on, just for the record, that did happen.
And for the record, I've had meetings with the applicant also because I knew I was conflicted out being a neighbor and they were doing neighborly information. So I wanted to go with that on the record also. And I have no issues with communicating with them.
And I don't see any reason why we can't approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Yes.
Does anybody
Correct.
have any questions? Well, you weren't here.
I can abstain.
I would just note, if you have reviewed the minutes and you believe that they in fact do accurately portray what occurred at the meeting, even if you weren't at the meeting, you can still act to move to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the September 8th meeting as presented.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Who absent? Mr. Williams, I think you're muted. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize to everybody listening. So we'll skip over the public hearing items. Let's go to the discussion items.
So
And is that something you want to talk to us about?
Yes.
A, B, and C?
these are mainly just updates to you. The discussion item 3A is closure of Copenhagen Drive. That's just an update to you that on September, I believe the 10th, the first meeting in September, let's say, at the council meeting, the council did approve, there you go, September the 12th. The council did approve a resolution to close Copenhagen Street through October 31 of 2021. and directed staff to work 2021, October 31, 2021. So it will be
A year.
basically a year from now. And their motion also included direction to work with the Branding and Design Committee. So Branding and Design Committee held their first workshop on the issue on September 23rd. They met here and heard about the technical aspects of it and the fire department closure requirements, and then took a tour of Copenhagen Street, came back here and had fairly limited public comment on that, and then set it to be on the agenda for the next discussion for October 8th, which is coming up on this Thursday. So this Thursday, the agenda is now posted. They will be hearing about the final recommendations from staff and their previous direction that they gave regarding Copenhagen closure design guidelines. And then that item will be taken to the city council, which is the ultimate body that would need to be approving that closure and that design. So that's all I have on Copenhagen closure, if you have any questions.
I have a quick question. I know that last meeting, there was conversation about farmers market, First Street versus Copenhagen. Was there an ultimate decision on that, or was there a result from that place?
So at the last meeting, the Planning Commission approved the staff recommendations, which includes the farmers market being located on Copenhagen,
Excellent.
but the city manager has authority to move it. So there's some flexibility. But they are.
Is
on
the city manager going to move it?
No.
Thank you.
Can I ask, there was some discussion on, with the farmer's market, that the trucks and vehicles would remain, or was that discussed and they're going to park them in a parking lot? What was the
There
final?
was
on
some
that?
discussion and a request from Sam, the manager of the farmers market, to potentially, especially during the winter season, when they have less participants, to be able to park the cars next to their tent. I've noticed that they have actually gone and done that, which hasn't been discussed with the city. So I'm in contact with Sam to see if we can figure out an alternate solution, because right now when they're parking the cars right behind their tents, they're A, blocking the view, and B, they're actually not leaving appropriate fire lane in the middle.
Mhm.
Because it squeezes the fire lane more
Exactly.
narrow,
And
And-
Copenhagen Street is
not that.
not
wide.
that wide.
And I've noticed in Santa Barbara and State Street, they don't let them park right there. They put them in lots and they come out. Now, I could see the winter months, so obviously it's in good hands and you folks are understanding that. Thank you.
And I think the general tenor of the discussion was that as a planning commission, we were in favor of allowing them to park in parallel, not
Mhm.
perpendicular, if that could be worked out.
Right.
So maybe they took that as direction that it was okay to go ahead and do it,
Right.
but that wasn't
I
what we
think
did.
there's a little bit of confusion, yes, to be cleared up.
Okay. So
So I think-
planning and design committee.
So item 3B is Branding and Design Committee. And as you know, Branding and Design Committee is now seated and is holding regular meetings. Their first items that they're working on is really focusing on Copenhagen Street. They will also be looking at suggested language for their roles and responsibilities that will once again ultimately go to council and be codified in our ordinances. So that's, both of those items are scheduled for October 8th. And actually, there's been a resignation of the chair of the committee, Rene Karskov. So that item will be coming back up for council discussion on October 12th coming up.
Did he resign as chairman or from the whole commission?
He resigned from the whole committee.
Wow.
So there is another vacancy that the council will need to discuss and
Mhm.
potentially appoint somebody.
So that will be filled on the 12th or
On the
discussed on the 12th. But the 8th meeting is the design, is the Branding and Design Committee meeting to
Correct.
talk about recommendations
Before
to city council.
Remaining people.
And then the 12th is the
city.
wow, here's our recommendation to close through November of 21, and then we need to fill a position.
Correct. Those would be separate items on the agenda.
Gotcha. Thank
So
you.
just for clarification, for me on what she said, on what's going to be presented to the council on the 12th could you go over that again?
Yeah, so one of the items on the 12th, that is an agenda item that will be the recommended design guidelines for Copenhagen Street developed by the Branding and Design Committee. So that's its
Okay.
own standing item. They will review the full draft of those guidelines this Thursday, October 8th, make their final recommendations, and then that goes to the council for approval.
Okay.
Now, a second standing item is going to be, because there's been a resignation, bringing back the applications, letting them know that there's been a resignation, and giving them the opportunity to appoint somebody else. In the meantime, the vice chair will act as the chair for the BDC.
Just to clarify something that Commissioner Peterson said, actually, the action to close Copenhagen until October the 31st has already happened. So that's not going back to the council. What's going back to the council essentially is what's it going to look like between now and October the 31st.
So I apologize. So the city council already approved to close Copenhagen Street between Alicel and 2nd Street for the next 13 months. Voted
Right.
on, done, finished.
There was a resolution presented to the council. The council held a public hearing, voted on it, and took that action. So
And-
now though, what it's going to look like, what design guidelines are going to be implemented, what street furniture may be included, any of those kinds of details will be going back to the council with the input from the BDC.
Just once again to clarify one thing on that first to second closure, the Branding and Design Committee did make, even though it's not in their final jurisdiction and authority, but they did make recommendations to partially reopen access to 2nd Street. So the report that will be coming to the city council will include that recommendation, if that's the final recommendation that the BDC makes, but then it's for the council to make any changes to that closure.
And point of just clarification, because it gets bannered around so much. A city council can change that, or is it locked in for 13 months no matter what?
City council can change that.
Okay. So if they find that there's problems or gosh, that design, I mean, it's kind of like you want to remodel your kitchen. Of course I want to remodel the kitchen. Then you find out you can't afford the budget and you go, I don't want to remodel my kitchen. So they can obviously go back through and say, wow, we don't have the money to make it look how we want it. We can then change it and come back later. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. General plan,
Yeah, so the last item 3B is the general plan consultant interviews, or actually the general plan contract considerations. We have had an RFP open that was sent to all major providers that work on general plan updates. We have completed that review process of the application process and have had an interview with the contractor that will be recommended for our general plan update. It's a fairly aggressive timeline, but at the same time, we want to get that momentum going and finish that up. It's the first really comprehensive general plan update for the city of Solvang, because the elements were updated or created at different times. And it also adds an economic development element to it. So we have the consultant is a fairly small firm partnering with larger firms. We think that they have a good proposal and a good strategy that focuses really more on the policy and having that community engagement at the onstart to really develop what the city is going to look like for the next 10, 20 years. So that recommendation will be coming to the city council on October 12th as well, this upcoming meeting. And it will take the city council obviously to approve that contract. The budget is already approved with the current financial plan for all of that update. And quite a bit of that budget also comes from grant funding. So I think it's an exciting project. It will allow for that bigger visioning conversation for the city of Solvang to determine what's the vision for the next 10, 20 years. And from that, obviously, all the financial plans and the work product that we do will fall in line with that bigger vision.
Did the RFP go out asking to redo the entire general plan? I know at one of our meetings, we talked about doing it in sections, 4 now, and I think it was divided into 3 or 4 different groups of 4. But that's not what you did, or?
Right. I mean, it was advertised as one general update and a comprehensive update. The budget is kind of split in doing these elements and those elements, but this consultant actually took the information that we presented and has provided with a proposed schedule to where it would be on them versus us to really manage how all of those elements blend together. And it also aligns well with our updates for the water and sewer master plans, which we're doing this year. And the budget is already in the 2-year financial plan, so it doesn't really matter that much when exactly those expenditures occur between the 2 years.
And where does our parking plan fit into all
Right.
of this?
So
Will
parking.
that be part of a section in the general plan or something separate?
The parking study is, we're not calling for a parking element, but the parking study will inform the general plan update, the circulation, traffic, the land use. So the parking study is right now under works. It will be completed in about December of this year. And then this consultant will be able, they have the scope of what we are doing right now, and they would be, if this contract moves forward, to just take our parking study and add whatever else they need to research and blend it into the overall picture.
Thank you.
One of the things that the parking study is going to help is the idea of including more uses in the downtown, adding additional residential or anything like that. Knowing what your parking inventory is going to help with the infill of the TRC area and the surrounding areas. So it's going to be a very important piece of information to include in the general plan update.
Yeah.
Can I just ask the elements of this? Sorry, the elements of a general plan, 5, 6 of them, I should know them. It's
7.
land use,
Oh.
7. It's land use, it's
Land use, circulation,
circulation,
housing,
housing,
seismic safety.
seismic and safety is 1.
Yes, open space and research and noise.
So those are our elements by state of California law. We must address each of those elements in our general plan. Then Solvang at some point said, we're going to have another element, meaning a design element, which a lot of cities don't have, but we have a design element. And that's why it's such an important design element, and we say why it's important. Then what we're saying is that we may add another element to this, meaning a parking element?
No,
Yeah.
economic
Economic
development.
development element. So we would have the standard ones by the state. We'd have our design and an economic development. The economic development is a brand new element.
Correct.
I applaud you for looking that far down the field. That's great. And so they will be looking at obviously creating a new element and then also reviewing those that are coming due. Not all the elements are coming due, but some are, and we need to address those.
Most of the elements, especially the very important element, the design element,
Yep.
was created in 1987
It's
and
due.
has not been
Yes.
updated.
Yes, housing we dealt with some of the other ones over the last 5 to 6 years. Yes.
Right.
But
And the
yeah.
housing element is mandated to be updated. And
all
that's
the time.
part of, that's
Yep.
part of the trigger is we're getting our RENA numbers and we're going to have to implement
Anyway, yes,
those anyways, which then ripples into your land use and your circulation.
absolutely.
So this is a good clean sweep of all of those pieces that a city needs to have to look at all of their resources, and they'll come on in one package.
But there's no discussion out there to eliminate the design element. And that's everybody is in
not.
favor of that. And then we're adding this economic development element. That's fantastic. Very applaud you.
And they all go through environmental review and public hearings. And so this is an 18-month to 2-year process. And there's a lot to do. But the consulting group that is coming on board has done general plan updates in a number of smaller cities in California and had good results. And, you know, we talked to a couple of them and they were highly recommended.
I have a general question. Is the new census data going to impact this at all? Or are we going to be looking at that? Because it may impact especially the housing
Mhm.
element. So, and I don't know, it sounds like it will be April before that information is available from the federal government at the earliest.
We did ask that question, and the response was there's enough other resources of information that are updated every year that they can get started with their work and be pretty reliant on information from the finance and from HUD and from California housing authorities and a number of different agencies that will be pulling those pieces together in anticipation of the census numbers coming. So they're not going to wait for
So
the
the
census
feeling
numbers.
then, interpreting what you said, is that the census isn't going to, we believe, isn't going to cause any major disruptions to what
No.
this contractor is doing for us.
Yeah, the more important thing is getting our RENA numbers, regional housing needs assessment numbers, because that's what we're going to be working towards.
And
That's how
those
we're
are
gonna
already
do it.
being driven by those other sources of information rather than
Right.
waiting on census. So
Okay, thank you.
So pretty exciting.
Yeah. Something to look forward to.
of work.
but it will help with general discussion.
Okay. Last item, commissioners' comments. Any that you haven't made or want to make? Or
I would like to note that the Planning Commission meeting for November 2nd, with the 2 items that have been continued, that we had 2 other items that we were teeing up. So it's probably going to be a little bit longer meeting.
Are they of similar scope to these?
Yes, there's a vacation rental, 3-unit vacation rental in Copenhagen. And then there's also a project on Alamo Mutado, Ken Hunter's project for 32 units. And so those are queued up to come to the Planning Commission on November 2nd. Based on where we are, we might not need a meeting in December unless one of them gets continued. So I'm just kind of projecting out what the plans are for the rest of the year.
Thank you, Bill.
And can I ask a general question? On vacation rentals, they do pay occupancy tax,
Correct.
just like a hotel room. It isn't like we had the timeshare thing 15 years ago where we gave them a discount, we signed whatever that was. They are straight up paying the same amount as a hotel room, correct? That's why they're allowed in the TRC. This is general knowledge. I mean, I started reading through that and it clicked to me that was all approved a long time ago. Okay, thank you. And only allowed in the TRC, not in residential. We had clarified that also at some point.
Correct, and that's what I tell people when they call. But there are about 7 homes or 7 lots along Copenhagen outside of the TRC that were specifically identified for the ability to apply for vacation rentals. And that's one of them that's coming before you at the next meeting.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there was a 4-unit down there that this is more like 8 years ago, whenever we approved it, because it had been TRC rezoned to residential, DR20 or whatever it was, that we allowed them under a conditional use permit to do vacation rentals as long as neighbors didn't complain and they kept things in order. I'm just trying to set a history of that, right?
Right.
In that same vein of that Western Copenhagen Street.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. That's what that's what I remember too. Thank you.
So then that means I do have a question in regards to what was going to be presented about 539 Alisal. Shall I wait until next meeting to ask a question about that? Remind me. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Just a general question about that address. That address is not included in TRC, correct?
It is.
It is.
It is in the TRC zone.
Okay.
The Mission Drive property, you're asking.
No.
The Alisal.
The Alisal.
Oh,
No. The Alisal is we rezoned that from TRC to multifamily.
It's DR20.
Is DR20? Yes.
The
The Alisal, the
Yeah.
1000s property got
Correct.
rezoned when we were hitting our housing element
Yes.
and we had to meet our numbers and we took 4 or 5 properties. One of them was Skit Mesa, Skit Lumberyard. The other is the Margaret Sy property that Ken Hunter owns on Alisal, and the other one was Ken Hunter's property that now he owns on Alma
So
Pintado.
could DR20 be inside of the TRC?
No, it's a separate zone.
Once you leave the north property line
You're
of your
in-
property, everything north of that is DR20.
So those
Correct.
kind of properties would not qualify for a vacation rental.
Correct.
That is correct. Now, the ones on Copenhagen Street also, so here was the other zone that we all looked at, was that whole strip from Second Place down to Fifth. We needed to meet RENA numbers. We had to meet numbers for housing element. And so we rezoned all that was TRC into multifamily also. And then we had a couple applicants, or I shouldn't say couple, one person came in, built a 4-plex, and then said, golly, could I please do TRC there? It used to be commercial. If I do it under a conditional use permit, we on the planning commission said yes, but every year or two we'll review to make sure it's not noise and abatement and all those things. And they've continued, obviously, have not had complaints. So we kind of fudged the lines there a little bit. We also had met our requirements for housing, which was incredible that we had done that with these other rezones and the new one on Maple Street. That helped a ton. The senior housing that helped to
Oh, yeah.
push us over the top. Yes, up on the hill. So, and those numbers come from the state, that comes from the county, and then they assign it, and then we have to go, oh my gosh, what are we going to do to rezone to meet that? We don't have to build them, we've got to rezone them. So we're fudging a little bit, but not really. We're looking at where it's reasonable to be able to do under conditional use permit some TRC type zoning
Right.
for vacation rentals, with the idea that we still charge the TOT. That's kind of just a quick history of the last 8 or 9 years.
Anything else?
Nothing else until next session. Thank you.
Okay, then this meeting's adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope the action on November 2nd is to actually fix that.